As for Space Ace, I got it. One moment. Whoops. I got Space Ace. Space Ace 2. And for Christmas, I got Dragon's Lair.
Which are all boring.
Yeah, right. Cam's just as hooked on them as I am, so disregard anything negative he says about them. Just a minute. I have not completed Dragon's Lair yet. I've almost completed it. Space Ace, you may or may not know, is from the makers of Dragon's Lair, Don Bluth Productions. So I thought you might find that interesting as well. Anyway, I haven't finished Dragon's Lair yet, but I have finished both Space Aces. So, and I've edited them together as well, cutting out all the pauses between scenes where it's loading off the disc and everything. So anyway, here it is. Be sure not to blink while you watch this because the games are extremely short. They didn't include the entire game in the home versions, but when you see the high quality, I mean each one, Space Ace 1 is 4 discs, and the second one's 5. Dragon's Lair is 6 discs. And that's quite a bit. They fit about 30 seconds of animation and sound taken directly off the original laserdiscs onto each disc. Anyway, hope you like it. So anyway, here it is. Enjoy. And remember, don't blink because the games are quite short. Okay? Well, the first one's about 2 minutes, the second one's about 1.5 minutes. That's excluding titles. Anyway, here they are. Action. Just one thing before we start. In case you were wondering, the kind of discs I was talking about were this size, not the old large, flat, bendable, floppy size. These are the hard ones. What else do I want to say? Oh yeah, just in case you aren't familiar with the Space Ace games, the story revolves around the main character whose name is Dexter. He has been blasted by a horrible weapon called the Infanto Ray, which was created by the evil person Borf. Borf is this big blue guy with a beard. Anyway, Borf is out to take over the universe using his Infanto Ray he's out to take over Earth, rather, by turning all the major people of Earth into helpless infants. And anyway, in the process, he kidnaps Dexter's girlfriend, Kimberly, and and Dexter, of course, has to put a stop to Borf's plans. Okay? And basically, and Space Ace 2 basically picks up where the first one leaves off. Story's basically the same. Kimberly's kidnapped again, and you have to, defeat Borf again. Alright, so anyway, here it is. Enjoy. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Dexter has a special wristwatch, which, curiously enough, is invisible. Anyway, with his wristwatch, he can occasionally do what they call energize, which temporarily transforms him into his adult form, where also, curiously enough, his name changes to Ace. Alright, I think that's everything you have to know. In the first one, they don't actually show the energizing sequences. They just sort of, like, in some scenes he's small, other scenes he's grown up. In the second one, they do show the scenes, though. Anyhow, here it is, finally. Enjoy. That's right, don't you forget it.
Ah, yes, this beautiful title screen here was courtesy of yours truly, using the New Tech Video Toaster. Really cool for titles because you didn't have to pre-render them. You could just click them on and off in real time. It was really cool.
Space Ace, defender of justice, truth, and the planet Earth.
So here we have the demo for Space Ace, which essentially plays like a little mini movie trailer. This is edited basically from the attract mode of the original Laserdisc game. It's kind of like a truncated version of it. ReadySoft, who put out the Amiga versions of various Don Bluth games, would often release these demo discs just to help promote them. and to give you sort of a quick look at the quality of the animation and such to want to, entice you to want to buy them. Now, I had not seen the Amiga versions of Don Bluth games in action until I saw that demo disc. I was aware of them, and back in 1987, I saw screenshots of Dragon's Lair, which was the first one that they put out, and I was just blown away. I saw the screenshots, and I was just like, oh my god, it looks exactly like the arcade game. And at the time, this is as close as you could get to the arcade experience in your home. Now, to put this in perspective, Space Ace here was originally released on the Amiga in 1989. That was before CD-ROM came around. I think CD-ROM was just beginning at the time, like sort of experimentally and with some, specific platforms that used it. But for the most part, it wasn't around. This all ran off of floppy disks. I always like that line. Uh-oh, whoa! Yeah, there's a lot of cheesy dialogue in here that became the butt of many running jokes with my friends and I. But yeah, so essentially you would have about 30 seconds worth of animation per floppy disk. That's bloody incredible. There was just nothing else like this at the time. So while it may look primitive by today's standards, obviously, when we can have like high definition full motion video, no problem. In 1989, something like this was really, a rarity. So, I should mention, you saw the cats there that just sort of appeared briefly, and then it just cuts to a completely different scene. Yeah, obviously this is not every single scene from the original Laserdisc game. They actually just kind of used bits and pieces and random scenes. Normally, in the original game, you would have a lot of what they called branching. So you could have multiple paths that you could choose to get from point A to point B. You could do certain levels as Dexter or Ace. So you had a lot of different options for how you could go through the game. So I have to be quick here because the entire game from beginning to end, including the second one, which we'll see in a few minutes here, runs about 6 minutes. So I have to keep it brief and to the point. So, yeah, anyway, I saw the demo for Space Ace, and I was like, oh man, I need that bad. Because I actually kind of missed out on Space Ace when it was in the arcades. Oh, another line. Run! There it is. Run! Run! Yeah, that was one we would repeat over and over again all the time in just random context. Yeah, so anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, I kind of missed out on Space Ace in the arcades. I had played Dragon's Lair quite a bit, and I played Dragon's Lair 2 quite a bit when it came out in 1992, I guess it was. But I guess Space Ace just didn't get as wide a release, so I just didn't have the opportunity to play it as much. I wanted to, but the only place I ever saw it was at this theme park, Canada's Wonderland. And so they had like a video arcade there, and that was the only place I ever saw it. So I just didn't get the chance to play it very much because, Canada's Wonderland is kind of like Canada's Disneyland. You'd have to pay like $30 just to get in, and that's a lot to go just to play a video game. There's another one of those beautiful toaster titles. Man, I miss the video toaster. Of course, the video toaster is kind of redundant now because everything that it could do then, in like 1990, you can do on a desktop computer with pretty much any video editing software now. But at the time, it was pretty damn amazing. It was bringing digital video into the analog world. It was pretty cool. But believe me, you'll hear plenty about the video toaster in upcoming retro episodes. We're here to talk about Space Ace, gol darn it. So Space Ace 2 is essentially just more scenes from the first one, because there wasn't actually a Space Ace 2. But because they weren't able to include all the scenes in the first one, it basically meant there were tons of scenes left over that they could put together for a sort of sequel. So all the little clips there you saw were actually kind of cleverly re-edited and rearranged from the final scene of the original game to make it look like Borf had been reintegrated into his adult self after being hit with the Infanto right at the end of the first one. But really, it was just some cleverly re-edited clips to make it seem that way. I should mention, however, for Space Ace fans, that there is some original animation in this that does not appear in the original Laserdisc game, and this is the only place it appears. There is a PC version of this game, by the way, so you might be able to find it kicking around somewhere, or you can play the Amiga version through an emulator or on an Amiga if you're so lucky to have one. But yeah, so anyway, I guess they needed to have an actual proper ending to it, so they did a whole original sequence that finishes it off and gives it a proper ending. And I think we're just about to get into it here. Yeah, this, from here until the end, is all original stuff. I should mention the final line that Ace says at the end of both games, my friends and I were butting our heads for ages trying to figure out what the heck he said. It sounds like he says, "Honey, it is huh." And we had no idea what he said. And then he says the same thing at the end of this one. But what it is he actually says, "Call me Ace, huh?"
Oh, Dexter!
Call me Ace, huh?
There you go. Call me Ace, huh? Because she keeps calling him Dexter. Anyway, that's it for my comments on Space Ace. Awesome. Love it. I'll talk to you later. This is Sean from the future saying goodbye. Back to the past we go.
In case you're wondering what all those beeps were, you played Dragon's Lair before, haven't you? Of course you have. Who hasn't? As with Dragon's Lair, in Space Ace, timing is the key. You don't control the character's moves entirely, you know. You just move at particular times and so forth. Anyways, the beeps were whenever I made a move, basically. Dragon's Lair is a little longer than the Space Ace games. In terms of gameplay, it lasts about 15-20 minutes, but that's because they repeat a lot of the scenes that you have to do. Aside from the odd scene here and there, you have to do, aside from 2 scenes, you have to do every scene twice. So that expands the gameplay. The problem is if all you want to do is a particular level, it takes forever to get there. In my case, all I have to figure out still is the Dragon's Lair itself, which I never got to in the arcade. And it takes about 15 minutes to get there in playing the actual game. And, gets a little irritating after a while. Anyway, whenever I finish it, I'll be sure to send it to you. Yeah, speaking of them not putting the entire game on in the home releases, with Dragon's Lair, they released the first version a few years ago, which was the one I remember you and me talked about it briefly once, just saying how, holy shit, look at the pictures on the back of the box. It looks identical to the arcade game. And it does pretty well. Sounds identical, that's for sure. All the sound is digitized right off the laserdisc. Pictures look really nice too, I must say. The animation is quite good. Anyway, they released the first version, and then a couple of years ago they released a second version of the first Dragon's Lair, which contained most of the scenes that weren't in the first version of the home releases. So between the 2 games, they've got virtually the entire original game there. So anyway, I'll be ordering that one and Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp, which I asked you about, or I told you about in the letter. Yeah, so you'll get to see those eventually anyway. So I think that's about it.